Hello, my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike, and before I get too more excited, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It means a lot that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. Now, if after all this hullabaloo, you still have the wherewithal, it'd be really cool if you shared this with someone who you think would like it, or just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. Or if you wanted to ask me questions or you thought of a cool guest, you can always hit me up on Twitter at LikeIkes or via email at passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. So I am recording this on the very eve of Saturday the 11th because I know I'm going to stay up way too late here in the next couple, like 3-5 hours, watching the League of Legends semifinals of the World Championship. You may ask, Isaac, I didn't know you were a fan of League of Legends. When did you start playing? Who's your favorite team? Who are you rooting for? The answers to this are basically no. I am watching the League of Legends semifinal leg of the World Championship because there is a chance at historical greatness, and apparently that's all I needed to wreck my sleeping schedule for a couple days. So I'm going to stay up and watch with my great friend Kyler Martin and drink root beer floats because that's what adults do, damn it. Speaking of other things that adults do, I went back through my finances. And this is hey, I need lots of money from you. Although if you have money to give away, I would gladly take it. We do have a Patreon after all. But I was going through my finances and realized, I wasn't really saving money for this and that being medical in my car, just in case something bad happened. Might want to save some money for that. So I, reallocated moving money around. And then I realized that even after I had moved money around, some numbers weren't adding up. I was like, oh, did I miss do this, miss do that? No, I just can't fucking add. And so my budget was just literally out of whack. So better late than never, but whoo boy, was that and still is that that makes the throat tight and the collar a bit uncomfortable. After this, I noticed a pronounced uptick in my doom scrolling. For those of you that don't know what that is watching and or reading inane internet content for the objective of distracting yourself, which is very much what I was doing because the idea of not being able to live as to how I was accommodated so drastically was panic inducing. It was very interesting. I noticed that I was doom scrolling, and the reason I was able to notice that and really pay attention to it and have the mindfulness to see it was because I've been doing therapy for a long time and have had a really good therapist as of recently, and we've been focusing on the right issues. It's been lovely. But also I didn't have the tools equipped to stop myself from doom scrolling. It was a very circuitous catch-22. But talked to my therapist today, looking into radical acceptance and, going to continue doing therapy and working on this. But it was very fascinating to realize that's why I was doing this, but not be able to do something about it. But it was funny. Any which way, if any of you have ever doom scrolled, I'd love to know why, or I'd love to know what you like to doom scroll. I've been ended up doom scrolling Sopranos clips for some fucking reason. I don't know why the algorithm thinks I want to see Italian guys whack other people. But that's been very noticeably upticked in my doom scrolling. Just wild. But anyway, yeah, hit me up on Twitter at LikeIkes or passionandpeeves@gmail.com. This week's guest is Charles Feather, who comes all a recommendation from Thomas Conme. Thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you so much, Charles. You guys were both lovely. Anyway, without further ado and more, I don't want to say my issues, but more other non-interviewy things. Take it away, past me. All right, folks. Today on the pod, he's 1/3 of the JudgeCast podcast, once ran an over 430 person Unfinity event, and is really just three goblins in a trench coat. It's Chuck Feather!
Hey, friends, how are you doing?
We are doing so good. Thanks for coming with us on this fine Sunday eve. But the people got to know, what decision in life are you the most proud of making?
Having kids. I mean,
The old classic.
really. Yeah, but I've got two boys. I love them to death. The decision, it was a real decision whether or not to have children. And what to do about that. So, I've got a son who's about 30 and a son who's 22, and they're both wonderful, and I love them to death. So, absolutely having kids.
When you said loved him to death, for some reason my brain went Greek, and I'm wondering if that's ever like come up in like mythos, where somebody's like, "Man, you just gotta love him to death," and Zeus is like, "Really? All right, I'll try," and then just comes back and goes, "They didn't like it." Just like,
No. Bad choice.
Did so this is something I am not even remotely in that position, but I'm kind of curious as someone from the outside looking in. I have no time in my life, really. I mean, I'm spending it doing what I love, but there's still very little time to just like chillax. I end up finding myself working on podcasts, hanging out with friends, playing tournaments, doing like filling it with time. Have you felt after you had children that went away? Was it went away but didn't matter? How did it change from before kids to having kids?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just as easy as this example. I would be walking in my local mall with, pushing the stroller and with my wife, and we'd walk by a place called Beachcomber Collectibles, and outside there were a couple of tables set up, and people were sitting there playing Magic, and I'm like, oh, that's neat, and I kept right on going. When you have kids, you make that commitment that you're going to be there for them, you're going to take care of them, you're going to make sacrifices based on that. I didn't start playing Magic until only about 11 years ago. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, I'm still relatively new, all things being equal. Um, Kids, you make that choice. Kids are going to be all encompassing. If you can't give that everything, or at least most of your life, um, it's not for someone. And I'm seeing that choice being made more and more, right? It seems like a lot of people are choosing that, especially this current generation coming up, that we're going to wait to do kids, or I'm not ready for kids, or I didn't love how my parents treated me, or some other number of reasons. So, yeah, it's what it is.
What was the thing that before kids to after kids went away the most? Like, was there an activity? Was there, a something that you like, a kind of like special something for yourself that diminished the
Fascinating.
most?
Fascinating. That's a great question. Let me think for a second, because I had my first son. I had when I was 20. We'll loosely do the math there. I think I was 19 actually.
Yeah.
So I was in college. I met a girl, liked the girl. I'm still with the girl. Hey. But what went away? Disposable income. Literally.
Yeah.
Literally disposable income. Because all of a sudden you're living on a budget and able to make week to week.
Yeah.
I spent easily 20 years of my adult life paycheck to paycheck. So yeah, disposable income.
On the same kind of token, what's the best or most memorable piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't go into the light. No, wait. Seriously, best piece of advice, I would guess be myself. I have never been comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
Never. Even today, there are times when I walk into a setting or a social setting, and people know me. Um, People who are going to listen to this probably know me as more of an extrovert type of personality. But I'm very much an ambivert. I need to recharge when I'm done exerting myself in public. And I have no problem exerting myself in public, but I wasn't always that way. And to this day, I still find myself second guessing things that I do and say when I'm in public.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's probably the thing.
You're just blowing my mind. I had to Google what ambivert meant. I was like, never heard this term before. I love it.
Oh, I pick up terms as we go along in life, and ambivert is one of my favorites. I probably skew exo just slightly,
Mm-hmm.
but ambivert is where I really live.
Well, to take you to one extreme of that vert, if you were to ever take part in a WWF styled event, what would you want your walkout song to be?
Oh wow. Um, The Regulator by Clutch.
Would that also be your pseudonym?
I could be. It could be. I don't know if I'd do it enough justice, but that would probably be it. Clutch. Neil has such a powerful. I liken it to like the Thor's hammer. He has such a powerful voice.
Yeah.
That I just dig their whole vibe. Seeing them in concert's amazing, and I'd have to pick something from their catalog. It could change week to week, really.
So, as a father who has children, what's the silliest thing you believed as a child that you now look back on and just giggle at your foolishness of youth?
Oh, I love this question. This is cool. Um, I didn't understand the term guerrilla warfare.
Oh no, no!
I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the 80s. And a really huge thing back then was these news reports. Tom Brokaw would come on, the news and be this very, very, and they wouldn't show film, but they'd talk about guerrilla warfare. And I could not understand why people were fighting guerrillas. I didn't get it. I didn't get it. It's terrible, right?
It's so awesome because then I'm imagining you as a kid going to like a zoo and just like looking side eye at a gorilla and be like, I see you. I don't think I don't see you.
But you'd also get the other spectrum, right? You'd get the Jane Goodall's films of her communing with gorillas, and
you just see her like a traitor.
That the male silverback is posturing and beating his chest. You'd watch that and you'd be like, yeah, I get it. They're pretty fearsome. Terrible.
That's
Terrible.
So awesome. What myth is your favorite to, or that you find yourself most commonly dispelling?
Oh, probably that judges are there to give you a penalty anymore.
Just to be clear, we're talking about Magic the Gathering judges.
Yes. Magic the Gathering judges. That is probably one of the reasons I'm here. I am an L2. I'm out of New Jersey. And I think one of the myths is that I see most common anymore is players having a difficult time believing that judges are going to be there to help them. Yeah. In almost all cases, we want to help first.
No, I remember coming up. So I started playing Magic the Gathering when I was like at FNM's when I was like 16, I think. Like 2003, mm-hmm. Like Onslaught had just come out. I remember I went to the pre-release of Legions, and there was an idea that you just I don't remember the first time I called a judge for like a rules question, not like to like, you know, there were a couple times where you called a judge because your opponent messed up, and you kind of hope that, especially back then, you hope that, you know, you were going to get a free game win or something like that. That happens sparingly. A lot of the time you just try to fix it yourself because calling judges was for suckers.
Right.
And then like I'm trying to remember, it must have been forever where I called a judge asking for, hey, how does this card work? Or, let's just call a judge and have them be like effectively the third party to resolve what happens when this small kerfuffle has occurred.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was, yeah, because I remember there's some where I live, he'll name nameless, but there's some old school dipshit that got into it with a younger player because they called a judge asking for a question or being like, hey, my opponent did this, not trying to get him like anything bad to happen, just, what do we do? How do we resolve this? And just effectively give him a warning or whatever for, a small whatever. And the guy was like incensed because he was old school and had played like a lot of his play had been in the past where you just didn't do that.
Yeah, we just don't need that.
No, we don't.
The
We don't need that at all
community doesn't need
anymore.
that. It doesn't behoove us to be like that. I stand up in front of the room. I'm 50 years old. I'm a little on the long in the tooth side for being a judge, because it really seems to be a younger person's game. But we don't need the grognards that want to play lands in front. And in my day, we didn't have the stack. I mean, it's cool. Let's hear these stories. Let's talk about it, but let's not talk about it in such a way or act in such a way that we put people off of the game.
Yeah, look back on for what it was. It was cringe. Shouldn't have been doing it, but that was the time it was. Like watching it's the way I view it, and it's different, but it's different in degrees, but similar in just like the way you kind of go woof. Is like if you watch Empire Strikes Back, the movie's awesome. There is also a scene where Han Solo is like negging and or being very sexually untowards Leia, where she's just like, "Get off me," and he's like, "Come on, you like it?" It's like, oh, it's not, it's not a good look for such a great movie.
So much of media has changed over the years.
But exactly. But
we don't need the retcon where Greedo shoots first, but we do need the mini retcons where we fix relationship issues.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, we don't need the was at the end to say anything where he's standing outside with a boombox and just being like really just really awkward. We could lose that, it's fine. So as a father and a lover of all things card games, perhaps you find yourself in circumstances where you find yourself flustered, annoyed, and you just got to get it out there. But you can't be out there slanging the sailor speak. In those moments, what's your favorite G-rated curse word to utter?
Lately, it's been sugar.
Oh, give us a taste.
Oh, sugar, or whatever. You get it's obviously a replacement for something fecal, and it fits. It's
especially
like,
if you have that H to it, that shh.
Yeah. It's right up there. For me, it's right up there with "bless your heart." Yeah, but
that's one of my favorite ones when said with the southern twang. Oh, bless your heart.
Oh, bless your heart.
It's so great, especially like if you look up and you can see in their eyes if they're being sincere or just really two-faced, and it's great either way.
Bless your heart is at somebody, sugar is at me. Generally. That's normal. That's normally how it works.
Well, speaking of such delightful treats, of course that's what you mean. What's your favorite meal to make just for yourself?
Just for myself. I'm a reasonably good cook. I really am. I really like doing things on the grill. I got one of those griddles not long ago, an outdoor griddle, and I made a salmon dish on it, and it was just amazing. It had notes of soy sauce and scallions and some other things, ginger, garlic, and cooking it on that when it came up. For those who aren't meat eaters, I do apologize, but when it came up, the exterior was cooked through. You could see the fat coming up off of it. It was a little crusty, but at the same time, inside, I have a very good fishmonger. I live within the stone's throw of the Atlantic Ocean, so I can get good stuff here. In the on the inside, it was still raw, and when you ate it, it had that fleshiness that you love when you get really, 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 really good raw salmon, and the exterior was just great. It was amazing. Um, that's just one thing. Oh, I've been doing sous vide lately. Do you know what sous vide is?
Ooh. Uh, all right. So my understanding is sous vide is where you take a meat. I think it's usually like beef or pork. You bag it and you boil it.
Yeah, you immersion it, but it's not quite boiling.
Okay.
It's a controlled temperature. And what you want to do is you want to get a temperature that makes the food safe.
Okay. So like
So pork,
160,
well,
180, something like
that's what we think.
that. Mm-hmm.
However, those germs and bacteria die around for pork at about 135, 136 degrees. So you put it in this bath and it's in a bag. You put it in the bath and you cook it for 2 hours at 137 degrees. And your pork, when it comes out, is bloody, but it's safe.
Nice.
It's amazing. So I've been doing that too.
That sounds lovely. Speaking of something of such delectability, what would you say is your biggest everyday temptation?
Drinking more coffee than I need. Really, really. I have this amazing ability to consume vast quantities of caffeine, but the coffee in particular, just rips my stomach up. I can only drink a cup or two, and then I need to move on to some other form of caffeine bliss intake system, something other than coffee. So yeah, more coffee than I can drink is probably it.
So, as someone who loves coffee a lot, do you find yourself do you get kind of all artisanal on it and brew it a certain way, a certain
Oh yeah,
temperature, or are you just
do
somebody
you do
who's
the
like,
French press thing? Do you do grind your
yeah,
beans? No. However, I cheat a little bit. We have in my house, wife and I, we have weekday coffee and we have weekend coffee. So we'll go, we'll we'll go to a local. We have this place in a like a little outdoor market area, and we go and we get coffee there for the weekends, and it'll be Jamaican me nuts or it'll be some other blend, and it's just amazing. I love a really good cup of coffee. I do.
that's awesome. A little weekend weekday coffee.
Right? We all need a little something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since coffee doesn't give you much sleep, this might be a tough one. But what was your last or most memorable dream?
I don't have one. Uh, um, I
Dreaming is
am
for
a
peasants.
yeah. Well, I have a very deep sleep cycle. When I'm out, I'm gone. You could have a grenade go off near me, and I will probably sleep through it. Um, I just don't remember dreams that much, and when I do, I only have them for a short period of time. A lot of times they'll be work related, but nothing that really sticks out.
Do you ever like is that something you ever worry about, the fact that you are like you don't, because that's I don't remember if that is a definitive denotation of like lack of REM sleep or not, or if like some people don't, but does that ever like kind of, you ever find that bothersome at all, that it is like that, like people talk about the dreams in like public situations all the time, when somebody does that, are you ever just like, oh man, I wish I did that, or you're just like, eh.
When I was a kid, I had nightmares. You know, um,
So now you're just excited that you don't have them at all.
the weirdest things. You know, something about being left alone in a store and some sense of overwhelming dread. Um, the standard stuff. I'm thankful that I get 7 hours of sleep. That's my thing. You know,
Mm.
I'm just happy to sleep, wake up, and feel human. Because well, no, for
Not
many
be
years.
human. You're three goblins in a trench coat. We know this, but you get to
Well, this is true.
feel human.
This is true. But for many years, I didn't. All right. I would
Mm.
sleep 4 or 5 hours and I'd wake up exhausted and I'd
Kids will
want to
do
take
that.
naps halfway. Well, it wasn't even that. I snored. I snored
Oh no.
terrible. So I went for a number of years where I just kind of resisted this thing, and I knew that I should do it, but I didn't want to do it. And I went and I got a sleep study, right?
Yeah.
So they used to do it where you'd go and you'd spend overnight someplace in this very clinical place, and they'd have a mirror on the wall or something that they could probably see through and stare at you while you're sleeping in the whole 9 yards, right?
Yeah.
Um, but they've transitioned now, and a lot of sleep studies are done in your home. So they send you this box with all this equipment and wires and gizmos, and you hook yourself all up. You go to sleep in the morning, you take all the stuff off, you put it in the box, and you send it back to them, and you wait 2 weeks to 3 months depending on your health care.
Good
um,
Lord.
well, I mean, right, healthcare in this country is insane, and that's a whole different topic we could spend 8 hours on, and I wouldn't solve anything. But um, I sent it away, and I went and I met with my doctor a little while later, and he said, "Oh, by the way, you have severe sleep apnea." I said, "Oh, okay, what's that mean?" He says, "You stop breathing 40 times an hour.
Wow.
40 times an hour you stop breathing."
Your
And
body's
all
just
it
trying to
takes
kill you while you're
all
away.
it takes is one time for your brain to not say, "Okay, you can start again."
Yeah.
Right? So I got hooked up with a CPAP device, an APAP device, and now I get 7 hours of sleep, and I wake up in the morning, I feel great, and I can conquer the day, and I don't really care so much about dreams because I feel like three goblins in a trench coat.
So is there a story behind, before we go on, I said it in the intro and just brought it back up. Is there a story behind the three goblins in a trench coat?
Oh, so I love goblins.
Who
I just
doesn't?
do. I just do. If I'm going to sit down at a table and play EDH with somebody, which I so rarely do, but if I'm going to do it, and if I've never played with them before, I'm probably pulling out Krenko and I'm probably playing that. Um, I love the humor behind them. If there's one thing in Magic cards that I love more than anything else, it's seeing goblins getting up to no good in the art. Uh, they're just so much fun. At the beginning of a year, when they release all the new set names for the next year,
Mhm.
I'll sit there and I'll make a prediction about which ones are going to have goblins and which ones aren't. You got to have some fun with the game, right? So goblins are it for me. I have more fun with those green or blue skinned or whatever color of hue they want to paint them in next, and they just make me so happy.
Well, speaking of painting, what's your favorite book, comic book, cartoon that you think would either be the best or worst choice for a big screen adaptation?
Geez, anything DC makes these days? Um, Aside from that, what would make the best? I would really like to see Constantine back on film again.
In your estimation, did Keanu Reeves do a good job or no?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He brought the character to life for a lot of people. He was not the same Constantine that a lot of people imagined John Constantine being, and that's fine.
Hmm.
The story was great. The characters were vivid, and everything came together at the end. I think it's probably one of my personal favorite films. Top five, no, but it's way up there. If I see John Constantine on with Keanu Reeves, I'm sitting there and I'm watching it. Slack jawed, probably. I think it's pretty amazing.
Well, along a line of such an illustrious tale, given the opportunity, what's your favorite story to tell?
Oh, um, wow. Do we have 5 minutes?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
For this, sure. Okay, so in another life, I was also a scoutmaster for a scout troop. I've been in scouting as an adult volunteer for about 21, 22 years. I gave it up when I went for my master's program about 5 years ago. But while I was doing it, I had a great group of kids, and we were out on a camp out, local campground, and it's about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and all of the kids are out doing stuff, and I'm starting to get ready for meal prep for the adults, and also keeping the fire going in the campsite. And we're just having a nice old time and chatting and everything. And I put my head down and I use the shovel to move the embers around a little bit. And I look up, and there's one of my kids staring at me, just smiling ear to ear, soaking wet. I'm sitting there thinking to myself,
Shit.
it's 55 degrees outside. He's smiling. Well, at least he's happy, right? Right. Yeah, we can go with that. So I look back up and I look at the other side of the campfire, and there's another one of them in the same state of affairs, smiling, drenched head to toe. And I'm like, oh, this is a bad dream. I'm gonna get phone calls. So not good. So not good. So I put my head down and I'm just thinking to myself, how am I going to navigate this? And I pick my head back up and I look away from them because I can't stare at them because I both want to laugh and I want to yell at them at the same time, right? And there are two others soaking wet. Got 4 kids soaking wet. Just and it's a little chilly and they're all warming themselves up by the fire and they've obviously had an adventure. So I said to myself, okay, well, we got to figure out what's going on here. So I say, okay, guys, come on, let's go over here for a minute. So we walk over. We're still in sight of everybody, but we walked a few feet away from the fire so that, they could tell me their tale of woe. And I said, what happened? And they said, well, we were walking over the creek down there and John slipped and fell in and it looked like fun. So I jumped in after him. I said, okay. So we asked for help up, but we really pulled the other 2 in. I was like, yeah, that tracks. That tracks. Okay, I got it. No worries. I said, you guys got changes of clothes, go get changed. You guys got another pair of shoes. And I knew the answer, you know the answer. You know that even though you give them these packing lists and you say you should pack this and you should bring that, whatever, you know that they're always going to forget things like an extra set of shoes, right?
Of course.
All 4 of them had an extra set of shoes.
Wow.
So obviously they learned something before they came and they realized the value of planning and prep work, which is just amazing. Go them. And I think out of those boys, 3 or 4 of them made Eagle Scout. So, yeah, good kids.
Well, speaking of things that you've done, I don't know how the scouts work, but it is an industry nonetheless. Do you have a favorite industry secret or term that's only used in your line of work?
Deaccessioning.
Go on.
So I work in public libraries, or in the field of libraries. I work in a public library in Margate, New Jersey, and I'm an assistant director there. I've been there for 30 years now. And deaccessioning is the act of taking books that are on the shelf, removing them from the system, and getting rid of them. It's an unfortunate truth. Libraries have finite space. They have a footprint, whether it's 6,000 square feet or 60,000 square feet. There's only so many shelves that you can fit into that area, and there's only so many books that those shelves can hold. And eventually, it's a truism. If you're going to serve the public and bring in new material, you have to get rid of older material. Yeah. So deaccessioning is actually the word that references that. And yeah, it's not terribly exciting, is it? Or glamorous, but it's a neat word.
So when you are deaccessioning, do you ever, like, since they are going to be gotten rid of, if you wanted to, could you just take them home?
Have I done that before? Yes, I've brought home 1 or 2 books. Not many. Because in the end they're gone. I'll put a couple dollars in the till, but that's all I would make out of them if we did book sale. The real truth is that a lot of them go to company, and that was back in the day. Nowadays we have companies like Better World Books and others that will allow you to send them books that you no longer need. They will repurpose them. They'll resell them for you. And then you get a small amount of money back from that. So
okay.
it helps them. Yeah. It helps them transition to a new life.
Yeah. So the book gets to go on and the library gets to be made a little whole.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not much, but it's a reasonable amount, and they're doing us a service by taking the books and finding a new place for them. So it works out.
All right. This might be a little grievous. What is the most heartbreaking deaccessioning you've ever had to take part in? Like title wise, like what book were you like, really? We're getting rid of this one?
Oh, anytime I get rid of science fiction, it hurts.
Uh,
It hurts. I am a reader. I don't just work in a library. I do really, as a hobby, I really do enjoy reading. You know, anytime I have to get rid of something that I feel like should still be on the shelf and it's just a space thing, it hurts.
mm,
It's not easy to do.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, something that is easy and fun to do is jam out in the car on the way either to a road trip or even just to work. What would you say is your favorite drive time karaoke or Ulta jam?
Oh, that's going to be so hard. Okay, so about 2 years ago, I realized that my music tastes were rather linear, that I could be boxed in very easily. So I started this thing where, like, every week or every other week, I would just pick something that I've never listened to and just listen to it. Go cover to cover, go deep on the catalog, try and really understand what the band was trying to do or what the artist was trying to do at the time.
Hmm.
So I have so many things now that are like that. If I had to pick one thing, it's in the last 2 years, it's probably Wu-Tang Clan, which I'd only listened to really for the first time in the last couple of years.
Oh, nice.
Um, but but between that or something really really heavy, uh, shout out to meddling mage Chris Bakula, who turned me on to Inter Arma. That stuff is just deep and filthy. Um, yeah, it all depends. I love music so much.
Well, to kind of turn it on its head, what's your favorite non-musical sound?
Well, I'm gonna get into trouble, am I? Let me think for a second. Non-music sound. That's my favorite. I mean, do you go with the simple, like a babbling brook, or
That's
do
a good one.
you? I think I'm going to go with that. Really,
Yeah.
that tells me that I'm outside. I'm in a place where it should be nice and comfortable for me. Um, and it just has that wild sound of rushing water. I love it. Yeah, that'll do it.
You just reminded. So we always say babbling brook, meaning a water source that is, kind of burbling or, just like going down, doing its own thing in a less than uniform fashion, right? That's the way I think of it anyway.
Right.
It's You also could have a man named Brooke who doesn't shut the fuck up and just talks incessantly.
So yeah, I know at least one Brooke. And Brooke isn't like that. But 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 yeah, sure, it
Like,
can
I don't know
happen.
why. I've heard that for 1,000 years, and that literally just hit me in this
You just
moment.
made that. You just made that connection. Now,
Yeah.
you're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome. Glad to be of help.
Well, that might not be the most amazing, but perhaps you have a proudest accomplishment that the fewest people know of that you'd like to share.
I don't know. I'm kind of open. Let me think. Um, I guess we'll get into it in some way or another. But uh, creating Dr. Judge, this alt persona that I have that I use when judging for unsets, and being able to run the largest Unfinity event. In fact, really, I think one of the largest events at that event of Las Vegas uh, uh, a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's that sticks out. I got to meet Mark Rosewater. Um, I got to run not one but two events. I ran one on Friday night, which was slightly smaller, about 378 players, and then I ran an Infinity draft for 430 players. And let me tell you, drafting for 430 players is not an easy thing to arrange.
No.
Um, and I had a team of about 12 or 13 other judges under me, that were helping me make this all happen. It was just amazing. It was amazing. People had so much fun. It was ridiculous. And while it's not necessarily something nobody knows about, But it's something only a few people could really experience and get. And I'm just so thankful to past times to let me do that. Um, and that's something that's going to stick with me for a long time.
Hell yeah. All right, here's a weird one, but we spoke culinarily earlier.
Sure.
Fuck, marry, kill, fork, knife, and spoon.
um, I can do a lot with a fork. So marry the fork. Do I need the knife? Do I need the spoon? I really, really enjoy cereal in the morning. I think we're going to kill the knife. F the spoon? That seems right.
That seems right. What is your go-to cereal of choice in the morning?
Lately, Honey Nut Cheerios. It's just, it's not complicated. Gets me out of the house.
It really is the Honda Civic of breakfast cereals. It does it right.
Oh yeah, that's it. The Honda. I will never look at another bowl of cereal the same way again. I'll always be like, "Are you the Cadillac?"
I mean, the Cadillac is probably Frosted Flakes, right? It looks and it's got all this bells and whistles going on, or maybe the Cadillac is like Lucky Charms.
A Cadillac, I think, is yeah, it might be Frosted Flakes. I do like a good bowl of Frosted Flakes. Lucky Charms, I tend to pass on. The marshmallows
Same.
don't do it for me.
No, neither of us are 5 anymore. The marshmallows aren't worth the taste.
No, they're not it.
What's surprisingly worth the money? Or if you don't have one that is there one that is not worth the money and people should avoid?
So I'm gonna go total dad mode for a second. Are
Yes,
you ready?
please.
Are you ready?
Bring
Okay.
it.
All right. Anything between you and the floor. So your shoes, your tires, and your bed. All of those things are worth the money.
That's such a great way of putting it.
Look, you can't go cheap on your shoes. I mean, you can go frugal, okay? You can, but you have to buy quality because otherwise your feet are gonna be, they're gonna kill you, right?
Yeah.
When you're driving, if you've got bad tires, forget about it. Forget about it. You're not
Forget
stopping when you
about
should
it.
be. You don't have control of your vehicle, and under inclement weather, you need good tires. And if you can't get a good night's sleep, what use are you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the answer.
That's a great answer. All right. Well, lastly, before we throw it to our commercial break, if you could have listeners of this podcast hear one song you were choosing, which would it be?
So, again, that 2-year thing, right? When you asked me that question because this is one of those things that you have to prep for and you have to think about a little bit, I had so many answers. Um, I had probably 8 or 9 songs listed originally, and I went it down to 2 or 3, and I came up with one, and I think it's just because it's indicative of how I feel about my wife and my relationships. Um,
Aww.
but it's absolutely "In the Morning Light" by Billy Strings. The song's just beautiful. It's amazingly beautiful.
Well, quickly before I tear up, we're going to throw it to our sponsors, so please stick around. But hey, if you got all the doodads you want in life, why not take a minute and enjoy In the Morning Light by Billy Strings? Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify at Passionate People and Preposterous Beef Podcast Song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Also, don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a jiffy. Do you ever find yourself sitting around with an emptiness inside your soul or larger than preferred vacuous space? Would you like to change that? I thought so. Now introducing Stuff. For when you have nothing to do but important things. Stuff. For when you're lacking personality and intrigue. Stuff. When the world has taken a pickaxe-sized chunk out of your heart. Stuff. And if Stuff no longer fulfills these needs, please don't hesitate to look into our life-enhancing product, Addiction. Welcome back, everybody. So, I'm here with Charles, and Charles, the people gotta know, what is your passion?
My passion has been and will continue to be judging for Magic the Gathering. And it's not just judging for Magic the Gathering; it's the judge community in general. I love the people that judging pulls in. We come from all walks of life. We're an international group of people, and they're just all so wonderfully amazing and so bloody talented. It's unreal.
So,
Um,
as this
yeah.
isn't a magic podcast, could you explain to your run of the mill muggle what judging does for magic and why it's important?
Well, let's take it a step backwards, okay? When you run an event, when a store has a bunch of players come in and they all want to play Magic the Gathering in a competitive style event, so that there's a winner at the end, and there's give and take between players. There's multiple rounds. How do you manage that? How do you get that from the point where you've seeded 50 players to the point where you crown somebody as the winner for the day? Uh, Oftentimes, judges are the people that will step in and will make that happen. We are trained in various aspects of running events. We are tested and make sure that we have a base understanding of rules knowledge and policy knowledge. Rules has to do with why the cards work the way that they do, and policy is what happens when cards go sideways, when players make a mistake, what have you. And that's what judges do. Judges are there to be the arbiters. We're there to help make sure that the events run smoothly, that if there's an infraction or a difficulty, that we help find the solution for the players. And in the end, we're there to make sure that the TOs look good. No. But seriously, judges are hired. We're basically contractors um, to work events. There's different levels of judges. You'll see L1s and L2s and even sometimes L3s at stores. But when you start talking about larger events like a Magic Con, which could draw in 5 to 10,000 people a day through a large convention hall, you'll see those worked more by judges with higher levels of experience, especially for the competitive play. When there's real prizes on the line, $10,000 or $1,000 in prize money. You'll see L2s and L3s running those events. Lately, in recent years, you've seen L1s, which are the beginning level of judges. You've seen them also work some of these events. The program has changed over the years. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it would have been L2s and L3s only on the floor of a GP. So, um, yeah, I think that helps to answer the question. I hope.
So, if for anybody out there, if I can simplify it a little bit, if what the lovely explanation you just gave went through their ears, the most similar kind of occupation or activity to what you do for Magic would be like referees for organized play in sports.
Oh
That
yeah,
okay.
sure. Yeah. So division differences, divisions like Division 1 play versus whatever.
Hmm.
Um, it, judges need a leveling system to help describe what size of events they can run.
Yep.
Okay. An L1, the lower level, is expected to be able to run a store sized event anywhere between 25 and 40 or so players maximum. And L2 is able to run 100 to 150 player event on average. That's just a very loose number. If
Yep.
there's a judge out there listening to me, please don't hold my feet over the fire. I myself, as an L2, have run 400-person player event, but it was more casual. For a competitive event, I probably wouldn't want to run an event with um, more than 100 players without having, and I'd probably have some support. L3s, they are the ones who sit there in that rarefied air all the way up there, and they help. They are the people that are in charge of the really large events for the most part. So if it's like 1,000 player event, an L3 is probably running that. In fact, they may have another couple of L3s underneath of them, helping to organize different aspects of running the
So, how did you first get into the judge program?
event. I got into it because I went to my very first competitive event about 11 years ago, and it was standard. And I brought my younger son with me. He was into Magic, and we played. And I think round one, I was deck checked. And even though I had heard the instructions, please make sure you have 60 cards on your sheet, and please double check the count and everything else. I thought I knew everything, and my deck list had 59 cards listed on it, and it was just simply a mission.
Mhm.
But I received a round one game loss, and I sat there and I said, "Well, could I could probably do that. I could probably tell somebody that they've lost their a round." And then I went home and I thought about it. I'm like, well, let's see, both of us spent money entry fees for the main event. Both of us dropped out early, so we spent money playing sides. Um, he really seems to like this and wants to do this more. And it doesn't take much for me to sit there and figure out I'm not a rich person. This is going to be painful. So the next question I had was, do judges get paid? And we went and that's how we got here. Um, Judges, yes, judges do get paid. Hopefully they get paid on time. That's a dig. Um, Something happening in the Twitterverse that'll hopefully be resolved by the time you actually listen to this. But yeah, I saw that, but I was always looking for something else to do and
Mhm.
something else to do with my kids. My oldest had it was pretty much moving on to college at that point, but my youngest, I was looking for something else to engage with him on,
Mhm.
and judging gave me access and gave us a reason to be in those play spaces. So yeah,
Aw. So instead
yeah,
of like just continuing to try and play this game that you were like you clearly enjoyed because you can't go from playing Magic to judging Magic without enjoying
yeah,
the sport itself, but as a way to save money, which I love, and also still stay close to your son and be able to go to either the same events or similar events to keep yourself in the same sphere is why you got interested in the program.
yeah. And it didn't take me long to realize he was the better player, so it made sense for him to do that and for me to judge. Um, and the whole joke about judges can't play Magic, it's not true. I have some very good friends that are so unbelievably competitive in that space. It makes them better judges, really. But uh, I judge because I like it. I judge because I like working with people, and it really speaks to part of one of my passions with the judge program, and that's mentoring in general. Um, I think that mentoring is so unbelievably important, uh, and the judge program over the years has used it. We've started to get away from it for a little while under Judge Academy, which was a institution that was put in place for 3 or 4 years, um, that we all subscribed to. It was a
Hmm.
professional organization, a certifying body, um, but we weren't as focused on mentoring. But I also think that was because we weren't doing as many really big events. You know, before COVID, Magic players could have the option to go to 40 or so really big events a
Yeah.
year. uh, the SCG circuit was running events 40 times a year. There was so much unreal choice. You know,
Yeah.
you were spoiled for choice. You could go anywhere you want. You could play the game, see the world. Um, COVID happens, everything shuts down, and even in the last year or so, things are still slow to come back.
Yeah.
SCG isn't running 40 events a year. They're running what, 5, 10, something like
Yeah.
that.
Something very
um
small.
yeah, GPs have become Magicons, and we run four or so of those a year instead of 40. So the world's a different place for judges and for mentoring.
What would your dream involvement with judging look like, or what would you hope it would amount to?
Oh God, I'm doing it now. I am. Um, when I started on the path to become a judge, I sought out all kinds of information, right? You would go to websites, you would try and find training videos, you would try and find any number of different things out there. And one of the really cool things I found very early on was I found a podcast called JudgeCast. And I would listen to CJ and Jess Dunks and Brian Perlman talk for hours in my ears about everything from layers to why L3s are needed at events and so on. And I would just listen to them. I'm like, my God, these guys are great. I wish I could just hang out with them. Fast forward to 2017, and I was working GP Washington, D.C. And I came up with this really cool system for helping sides events stay organized. This was basically pre-tablet and pre-computer for those events. I came up with this weird color coding system. It's not important. Um, but I also had this goal to meet one of the cast members. I wanted to talk to Brian Perlman. I really wanted to talk to Brian. And why did I want to talk to Brian? Because they did this episode on layers that was really confusing. And I wanted to sit there and say, hey, bud, can you do me a favor? Can you make a new episode on layers? It only took them about 4 years, but they did get back to it and they did freshen it up. And the new episode's much, much better. Trust me. Um, but I would listen to these people in my ears all the time and I'd be like, they are so good. I love this. I wonder how they get this information. I wonder why they put this all together and they do this for us. I was like, I really want to do that. So I got asked to do a guest appearance. I think it's maybe episode 169, something like that, um, where I got to come in and talk about Friday Night Magic events because I was an L1 and Friday Night Magic is an L1's bread and butter. For
Yep.
those just listening at home, Friday Night Magic is generally a more casual atmosphere. It's called Friday Night Magic because why not? They're going to hold it on a Fridays and they're going to hold it in the night. So we'll call it Friday Night Magic. And people will come into stores and play all over the globe. So there's 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 game scores, whatever, however many there are. All of these stores hold Friday Night Magic events. Players come in, they'll play draft, they'll play standard, they'll play modern, they'll play EDH, whatever floats their boat. So I was asked to come in and talk about that. I did. And then about 4 years ago, I get this message. Hey, what are you doing? And it's Brian. Over the course of time, I got to know Brian a little bit. I said, no, not much. He goes, so you want to join the cast? I was like, oh yes, but he said, what? I said, phone call. So we talked a little bit, and I told him that I was just starting grad school, and there was no way. just
Yeah.
there was just no way I could juggle professional life, home life, grad school, and the podcast. It wasn't going to happen. So I said, just keep me in mind when I'm done grad school. I'm good to go. I finished grad school. He knew I finished grad school, and no call. So I was like,
Oh.
well, he's got the show. It's all good.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, somewhere around 7, 8 months later, I get the call again, and he's like, "Okay, are you ready?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in. I'm in." So I get to do what I wanted to. I get to do. I get to. I get to be the one of the voices of JudgeCast. I get to be this thing that I listen to that helped mold me and get me to where I was, and I get to do it and hang out with these amazing people and do interviews and teach people about rules and walk into a room and they're like, hey, that's the JudgeCast guy. You know? I don't do it for ego. I do it because I get to help people.
Mm.
So I don't know. What else would I want to do? I'd love to make L3. I would, but I don't have the time for it. I don't think it's in the cards.
What does it take to go from L2 to L3 that you don't think you have time for?
You have to be able to work more events than I do.
Mm.
You have there are so we're in this period of transition between Judge Academy and in the US and Canada, moving to a format called Judge Foundry. But under both formats, you had to have a certain amount of time working large events. You had to have certain experiences. You had to be, you had to be a team lead for deck
Yeah.
checks, or you had to run events that were X number of players, or whatever. You had to tick certain boxes. Um, I have been transitioning in the recent year or so, from working the floors much to working administration more, um, working the stage. So I am lacking in floor experience, and I don't know if it's going to go back. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
If there was someone that you could work with, whether it be another judge you're kind of working alongside them or somebody else that you run an event for in the Magic space, who would you want to work with?
Alive or dead? I'm
Sh-
just asking. Is this broad? Because I've got one.
I know who it is. Alive or dead's fine.
Sheldon Bennery.
Yeah.
I got to meet him. I got to talk to him. I got to break bread with him briefly. Um, that guy just had stories and such a great worldview.
Yeah.
He really did. I would love to have had a chance to work for him. My mentors were mentored by him.
Oh wow.
You know, I when he passed, I got looped into a lot of different conversations, but one of my main mentors reached out to me late that night, and he's like, "Did you know Sheldon passed?" And I had no idea that he was his mentor as well. I just didn't, but it
Hmm.
makes sense. I just didn't think, because I was still in shock myself. And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I did hear that." I said, "It's terrible." He said, he spent an hour talking to me about how much Sheldon meant to him. So absolutely Sheldon. Um, Present day, with if I take Sheldon out of the mix, who would I like to work with, or for?
Hmm.
Um, I've worked with so many great judges. Take a name out of the hat, and I'll work with anybody I haven't worked with before. Every time I get to work with somebody new, I learn something different. I love them all. They're great.
Can you break down what it is, like the day in the life of a judge during like a Magic event?
Sure. Oh, okay. All right. Um, First off, everybody needs to know that judges oftentimes, when they're working, let's take a large event, because I think
Let's
that's
say,
the
let's take
one
a
where,
large 1 day event.
yeah, a large, sure, large 1 day event. Let's say 1,000 players or more are going to be there. First off, your day is generally longer than probably people think it is. It's not an 8 hour shift in most cases. In most cases, it's a 10 to 12, and sometimes 14-hour shift. It depends on what position you're in and where you're at.
Okay.
So your day starts early, unless you have the late shift, and then it starts late and it goes late. So let's say it starts early. You got to find some breakfast. You got to get some fuel in you, because you may not get to eat for another 4 or 5 or 6 hours. It depends on when you get breaks.
Oof.
You hit the floor. You got to be caffeinated if that's your thing. You got to be dressed and ready to go. And when you get to the floor, you're going to find whoever your team lead or your lead is for that day, unless you're the lead. And then good on you. Uh, but, but you got to find your boss. You got to find
Yeah,
the
yeah.
person that you're going to answer to. You go and you find them. You check in with them. You find out where your break room is. You stow your stuff. You come out. You go and sit down. You generally have a team meeting of some kind. It can cover any number of different things. Depends on the events that you're running that day. Team meeting can run anywhere between 5 minutes to a half hour. Again, depends on the complexity of the day. If you're running a competitive EDH event, you're probably going to be sitting there for a while listening to instructions. If you're running a modern 100-person event, you're probably going to sit there and be told you have to be at X place at X time, and there you go. Um, so you'll get your events, you'll get whatever you're doing. If you're on something like a team for deck checks, From the very beginning of the day, you'll be doing jack checks all day long. That's fine. That's what you're there to do.
Yeah.
If you're um, working, a lot of times with the larger events, you'll have these sides areas or sides on demand events, and you'll go and you'll launch drafts for a few hours, or you'll be assigned to a scheduled event, which will be 60 players playing modern. Um, Oftentimes, judges have to be masters of being able to float in between different things, um, because sometimes you'll have to cover a lunch break, or
Fun.
you'll be working one area, and right next to you will be you'll be working one area and working modern, and right next to you will be a legacy event, and the call will go out for a judge, and you'll be the closest person, so you have to jump over and take that call. Um, e- Judges are need to be very good at customer service, because you can handle any number of different things that'll come up during the course of an event. You have to be flexible, and your event, you're going to be on your feet all day long. So when you can take a chance to find a place to sit down, sit down. Don't stand there and talk. Sit. Um, Watch magic is the number one thing that judges should be doing, and sometimes they get caught up into doing different things. Shoulder surfing, seeing what's happening with the plays. You're going to catch so many mistakes that way, and so many things that you need to step in on. That the more time you spend watching magic, the more time, the better you're going to be at your job. So you'll get a chance to break probably twice during the day. You'll probably get a short break and a long break. The long break will happen earlier in the day. The short break will happen later. Um, Try and think about what your food options are going to be before you get there, because some places don't have the best options for food. And when you have a half hour break in the evening and you've got to go another 4 hours, you need to find food fast. And it's got to be, something that'll sustain you. Uh, if not planned, bring something to eat. I mean, you're allowed to do that. Um, and then towards the end of the day, when everything's done, you'll be doing some cleanup. You'll be keeping an eye on things. And when it's all said and done, you'll probably have an outgoing team meeting of some kind where you get a chance to talk to your team lead or someone else who is in authority. Let them know what your thoughts were for the day. It's Judges have this culture of feedback, um, which is not unique to them, but because we're run things on such a compressed timeline, right? We show up, we run this 1,000-player event, and we leave. Um, it's important to impart information quickly, efficiently, meaningfully. So oftentimes we focus on the feedback, and at the end of the day, you get a chance to give this feedback. You get a chance to talk and sit. Okay, I had this player that did this, and it was really weird, and I didn't know what was going on. Or I saw Judge Smith make a bad call, and I want to talk about that. Or um, any number of different situations that come up. And then when it's all over, you go home and hopefully you eat something filling and feel good about yourself and what you did that day. That's a really long-winded answer for the question. I'm sorry.
No, that was so insightful. Thank you so much. So, as for those of you that do know, I'm, a Magic grinder. I play a lot of tournaments, and so to know the difficulty that goes into these judges who, sadly, I'll be the first person to say it, we don't treat nearly as well as we should, just helps for at least me and hopefully other people who are also, Magic grinders, people that play the game and try to get victory at every corner, and especially these big events, we do rely on these judges, but we don't really, especially myself included, appreciate them as much as they for especially for as much as they put into it. So to hear that really is eye opening and helpful, and will hopefully help bridge my compassion in the future. So thank you.
No, it's all good. I think one of the most important things, if you get out of this, if you're a player, is every once in a while saying thank you to a judge goes a really long way. It fuels us. It gives us wings.
What would you say? This one's not going to quite translate as well as it normally does. What would you say is the biggest misconception about your passion by either the wider world or even within the magic ecosystem itself?
Um, it's entirely possible it has to do with how we're paid, or if we're paid, or what we're paid.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it probably has to do with pay and that it may also be that the ACAB issue, um, because okay, judges are in a position of authority, right? Let's
Hmm.
just let's just call it like it is. Judges have the ability to affect your game and your day and your tournament. Um, we're not always loved for that, um, but the idea is that we try and create a level playing field for all the players. So if somebody's doing something shady, yeah, we're going to have a conversation, and that's not easy. As far as the pay goes, judges are paid. Are they paid minimum wage? In some cases, they are. They should be at least that. But when you add in travel, when you add in all the additional expenses, when you add in all the training that we go through, where we're doing a lot of that on our time, does it all work out? I don't know. I think it depends on judge to judge, and that's a question that they need to answer for themselves.
On the flip side of that, what would you say is your favorite non-obvious aspect to judging and being part of the judge community?
Judges are some of the funniest damn people I've ever met. They really are. They really are. Judges are just, I mean, Magic players, anybody who games, right?
Hmm.
It's just the greater community. It's not just judges. It's all of us. Um, there's a desire to be the most clever person in the room, and sometimes we prove that through humor, and that can be so much fun.
Well, to go from the lovely to the lackluster, my friend, what is your preposterous peeve?
Oh, oh, people who bring pets everywhere. Like seriously, just
Everywhere?
leave Spot at home. I mean, does Rover need to come with you to get your ductwork from Home Depot, or on a, a coffee run to the Starbucks inside of Target? Um, there are people out there who are, and look, I'm a dog guy, and I also love cats, and I love all things from reptilian on up. But your dog's it's not your living room, folks. It's just not. And it's not the service animals. Service animals belong everywhere. I love service animals. But the people that believe that their pets are people and should be everywhere, uh, I think sometimes people are uncomfortable with that. I've seen some dogs do some stupid stuff at Home Depot. I mean, just really. And pet owners aren't even much smarter. So this whole my dog is people thing. Your dog's very cute, but please walk around the neighborhood, play fetch with it in the dog park. Don't bring it to don't bring it to Hallmark stores. Really,
When did you first notice this kind of raising your ire?
I think it was a COVID thing. Really, I started it. I keep saying Home Depot over and over again. But it's the really big box stores, the really large types of places with cement floors, any of them. I think I really started noticing it with COVID. Um, because before that, I'm sure it was a, I would guess it was a policy, but I didn't really pay attention to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. COVID's this weird thing where we use it as a mark in our timelines. We're so much changed for all of us. Um, and I think that's probably where I started to really notice it. Now, was I going out and doing a lot of shopping before COVID? No, because I was still in my grad school program, so I didn't have a lot of free time anyway. So maybe that's part of it.
do you have a story where this perhaps Rover or Spot was a bigger offender than maybe you ought to made it out to be?
I mean, they'll sit there and they'll just, bark and lunge at each other sometimes. The dogs aren't always well trained. And the people want to get them socialized. And there are some dogs that are brilliantly trained. You know, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm making more of it out to be than it needs to be. That's probably true. It's probably all me.
Well, I mean, that's the best part about this segment is you get to, regardless of whether it's all about you or everybody else is behind you, you get to just let it out, man.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't even really mind the emotional support animals either. I think that that's fine. It's just, Mrs. Biggleworth with just I don't get it. I don't get it. I have a dog. My dog stays home. We take her to the park. We walk her around the neighborhood once a night. Love her to death, but you know, Lulu Dallas Multipass stays here. Yes,
Oh,
that's her
you.
name.
All right. Well, with that, with that deep cut of a reference, we're gonna head to our second ad break. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Charles is gonna enter the lightning round.
Ooh.
Have you ran out of new stuff to do, rendering your life wholly unsatisfying? Do you have too much time on hand and have no idea what to do with it? Or are you just plain over this existence and wish for a plane with more intrigue? Might I introduce you to Addiction? Addiction deals with all these problems and more. Had to meet your significant other's parents and would rather not? Addiction. Had to go to work for the third day in a row? Addiction. Rent? Why not? Addiction. Addiction cannot be held responsible for your choice of choosing to imbibe in addiction. Any and all life-destroying fallout as a result of addiction cannot be legally pinned on addiction. But you're more than welcome to try. And we're back. Charles, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round.
That sounds scary. Yes.
All right, buckle your seatbelts and keep your arms inside the ride at all times. Charles, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
Yes, but I'd have to have something else in place.
Would you rather make the food or do the dishes?
Both. I don't want to put the dishes away though.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Not that I can recall, no.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza sounds great.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Amazing, but I'm intrigued by people who pick terrible.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
I think it's great. Cool.
Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
Does not one imply the other? Is this the chicken or the egg question? I create my own thoughts. Then I listen to them.
Album, shuffle, or playlist?
Album.
Is there such a thing as a perfect piece of art?
Yes, and I own it.
Have you ever had a crush on a cartoon character?
Yeah, sure. That didn't take much. I had to think for a second, but I got it. Yeah.
Are you out of touch or is it the children who are wrong?
Oh, I'm definitely out of touch.
What is more important, freedom or structure?
Education.
Would you rather have tentacle arms or kangaroo legs?
Oh, wow. What could I do with both? Let me think. I think the kangaroo legs, but I'd go for the tentacle arms too. Can we have both?
No.
Oh, legs.
Would you rather be a human in a world of Muppets or a Muppet in a world of humans?
Can I be Skeeter? Muppet.
Would you rather meet an alien or a ghost?
Alien. Absolutely alien.
Are hot dogs tacos?
Yes. This is a judge question. Okay, we'll come back to this. Go ahead.
Skydiving or deep sea diving?
Oh, I hate both. Deep sea diving. At least I can see something different.
Subbed or dubbed?
I'm old. Both.
Do you like reading in the bathroom?
I like reading everywhere. I'm a librarian. It's a professional, hazard.
Would you rather be stranded in the desert or at sea?
At sea.
Would you rather have your fries cost double or they always come out cold and soggy?
Oh, double. That's not even a question.
Do you pee in the shower?
No.
Do you believe in karma?
Yes, I do. I do.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1-hour time limit?
Are we talking bites or like eat it all?
The whole entire
No, I
thingamajig.
couldn't even come close.
Well, either way, congratulations! You've survived the lightning round!
Yay!
Woo!
Okay.
Now, before we move on, I, like many listeners at home, would like to now know, what is your favorite food that you couldn't eat 37 of in a 1-hour time limit for $5,000?
Oh, I'm a sucker for really good pie. Not pumpkin pie like pizza pie. So I am very lucky. I live in the state of New Jersey, and I am bookended by New York and Philadelphia. And there are so many good pizza places. It's unreal. And sub shops. Cheesesteak. Give me a really good cheesesteak. I'll die and go to heaven.
All right, so hold on. We're going to take a small foray real quick.
Sure.
What goes on a really good cheesesteak? What comprises it? What shouldn't be on there?
Okay, for me, I like fried onions, mushrooms, and I prefer provolone. But some people do like American cheese. The whole whiz thing, that's not a cheesesteak. I know that I'll catch flack from somebody for that, but it's just not.
Allow it. All right, so now as a reward, I grant 3 a lightning round question of your own to be echoed until we get bored of it. What you got for us, Chuck?
A world without music or without holidays?
Fuck holidays.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Sorry to be so crass, but it's like music.
I think that's the right answer. I do.
What is a holiday without music anyway? Right.
Right. And I think we get so hung up on holidays. I think that a world without music would be just so freaking sad.
I agree. So you said you had our hot dogs tacos. You wanted to come back to that one.
Sure. So judges, if nothing else, are pedants.
Pedants?
So they're pedantic.
Okay.
They really, 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 really like to get granular on things for no reason, just because it's fun.
Yeah.
And the whole cube theory for sandwiches or food or whatever. That's something that kicks around about once every 6 months or so, and they get so deep on it, it's unreal. So I love every one of them, which is why absolutely a hot dog is a taco.
All right, I'll raise you then, since you came with that one so quickly. Are soups smoothies?
Oh, that's interesting. Is soup a pie?
I would say just no, because of state of matter. Like, I don't think you have a liquid pie.
But we have a container that looks the same.
I mean, by that logic, everything is a pie if it fits in a box.
Well, a flared pan, flared bowl. I don't know. It's something to think about. We'll have to figure that out.
Tune in next week where Chuck and I may come up and publish a paper on whether everything is pie or not.
Right.
All right, man. Sadly, as it is for me to say, it is time for our time together to come to a close. Is there anything you want to plug, shout outs you'd like to give, or places where people can find you or your content?
Oh, absolutely. So my Twitter handle is at mtgdad. That's on purpose. I'm also a member of the JudgeCast team. That's weird. JudgeCast team. You can find us at JudgeCast on Twitter or on the website www.judgecast.com. I need to give a shout out to my two co-hosts, Brian and Marcus. And I also want to tell people who are interested in judging or would like to look at doing it, if you're in the US and Canada, Judge Foundry is probably going to be the new program. At least that's what it's shaping up to be. And if you're outside the US, if you don't have a local judge program, you can sign up or look into the International Judge Program, which was literally just announced in the last day or so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chuck.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, thank you, Charles, for being my guest today, and a special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you, yes, you, listening at home, or wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.